The case I'm presenting today is a woman in her mid-50s who presented for an echo looking at LV function as part of a workup in terms of treating her dissection of her descending and abdominal aorta. This could be classified as either a Stanford type B or the DeBakey type 3B type dissection. The B in the 3B refers to extending below the level of the diaphragm. She was treated initially using a TEVA stent, which is just a cloth-covered stent placed in the arch just to try and limit the further extension there into the proximal descending aorta. This diagram just shows the picture of the stent. From her CT image, you can actually see that stent in place, and which I'll also be discussing in relation to the study. From the first parasternal long axis view, the abnormality is already quite obvious in relation to the descending aorta in this view. As well as being quite dilated, you can already see an apparent flap across the actual aorta. When you look closely, that just highlights that it's already quite obvious from this view that it's abnormal. The actual LV function did look fine. The aortic root was dilated, moderately dilated for her body size, and the ascending aorta was just mildly dilated for her size. But when we look at it though, there's definitely no sign of any obvious dissection flap or any abnormality in that respect. And similarly, there's mild aortic regurgitation, but nothing too dramatic. And so when I look in the long axis at the descending aorta in the short axis view, you can actually see this flap extending along the length of the vessel. Coming down to the 4-chamber view, as I said before, normal ventricular function, as can be seen from the 4-chamber and the 2-chamber, and the long axis view. Again, with that long axis view from the apical window, you can see that dissection flap very nicely and very dilated descending aorta, which can be looked and seen quite clearly there. When you rotate and look from the 2-chamber view opening up the descending aorta, it's very obvious the actual flap in this view. And when you look at the colour flow, you can actually see the true lumen, which has the blood going through it there, and for decent normal velocity. And so, just moving on. So here I'm looking at the inferior vena cava. You can see again normal size and relative movement with breathing. And then opening up the abdominal aorta. And so you can see here that it extends quite down far, quite a decent way into the abdominal aorta, and the abdominal aorta can be seen to be dilated when you look at relative to the IVC we just looked at before. And again here we can very nicely see the flow through the true lumen, and we can actually see that communication from the true lumen to the false lumen as well. And just highlighting again there. And looking in short axis, as typically is the case, this true lumen often will look smaller than the false lumen. Here looking up into the arch, and so here we can see normal relative colour flow through there, but when you first look at the top of the picture, there is some apparent flow acceleration up there, and a little bit of more careful investigation does reveal that higher velocity flow going through there. When we sort of come up to it a bit closer, again we see there, and when we actually look with the Doppler, we do see extended acceleration through there. And when I'm looking at the aorta from the right parasternal window, again, no sign. The last point I want to make is that flow acceleration I was discussing before was actually flow through the strata of the actual stent that had been placed